Welcome into In the Bag. I'm one of your hosts, Robbie C, and we have the other fantastic human being, creator of all things joy in your life. Welcome, All Business Brad.
Good morrow to you. Guten Tag, my dog, as I saw. I saw that on TikTok, and I just thought that was the funniest thing, and I'm going to try to start addressing people. I think I texted you that, Robbie.
You did. That's why I'm laughing over here. So I'm like,
Yeah,
man,
I'm really
it's
trying
still early in the morning for me, and we have I've heard that twice today.
Yeah, that's more than if you're not German, you haven't heard that many times today. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. I don't know. It's like this TikTok creator, and he says more. It's like more casual ways to say like more corporate things. So like you go in and you're like, good morning, Jason, good morning, Robbie. It's like Guten Tag, my dog. So I really like that. I'm trying to make that my persona. So we'll see how it goes.
Is this the guy who has like it's a whiteboard, but it's like they look like the like frosted glass behind him?
No,
Okay.
but that guy's funny too. That like comes up with cool names to call your friends.
Yeah, cool names to pronounce Emily.
Yeah. So that
Emily.
that guy just has the same energy as me. I like making up weird names for stuff and weird songs for things. It's funny because my 2-year-old has started like singing now, and he'll just start singing about random stuff. And Kimberly's like, "That's you because you sing about literally everything." And now I'm not a good singer. I just like to make up silly songs. But anyway, late hello and thank you. But also wanted to say shout out to all the mothers out there. Hope you had a great Mother's Day. We were just talking, Rob and I were just talking about that. Robbie's wife had her first Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And if you are mothers, or if you're not a mother, I hope you said Happy Mother's Day to your mother.
Yeah, absolutely, y'all. Absolutely. Well, guys, let me just say, y'all made it so fun this week. We put out a challenge last week saying we built this bag for a 900 rated player, and we asked you to name this unknown player, and y'all came up with some great ones. Brad and I have the comments pulled up. So Brad, I think we highlight some of our favorite ones, and I'm not necessarily sure that we should land on it like during this. We'll talk about it off air.
Yeah,
but I definitely have one that is a front runner for me personally.
Okay,
but
I'll be curious to
share
see
some of the highlights for you.
Yeah, 2 of these made me like audibly laugh when I read them, and I think just because again I like a little bit of dad humor almost, and I don't know, it just made me laugh because I don't know, I just wasn't really expecting it, I guess. First one was Hyzer. Thought that was just great, cracked me up. Thought that one was a good one, and then I don't know why, but Bud the 900 stud made me laugh. Like that one, just classic. I think that one's just classic. So, what are yours, Robbie? What one stuck out to you?
Yeah, I also appreciated Hyzer. I thought it was fun, and also Hyzer, I'm assuming is a lady, and
ANNE.
Yeah, ANNE, and that was the only other ones. I liked Mike Humphreys is the one who submitted the question, and he commented and he said, "I am MA60 Mike."
Yeah.
900
really
Nigel
funny.
was super fun. And then I also, where was it? Oh, Dogleg Doug was a great one.
Oh, Rip Daring. I forgot about that one. Rip Daring.
Yeah.
But I like the tagline, "Daring the course with Rip Daring."
Yeah. Welcome back to our next installment of Daring the Course with Rip Daring.
That one might have bumped up a few slots for me, to be honest with you. Now reading it out loud.
Yeah, but Bud the 900 stud is incredible to me because I'm a human being, and I'm going to say this, and I know that it's going to backfire because people are going to greet me in person and they're going to say it. But one of my biggest pet peeves in life is when people call grown adults buddy. It drives me nuts because it like I see it when I'm like talking to a kid or something like that. Like, what's up, buddy? Come here. Yeah. It feels so patronizing to me. I don't know why, and I know that lots of people it's just vernacular for them. But man, So normally that's how strongly I feel. But Bud, the 900 stud, is so funny and just
Yeah.
so on the nose. I'm like, yeah,
It's a front runner for both of us. I think we'll talk off air, but that might be the one. It's
yeah.
funny that you say that. I call like as like a affectionate name. I call my sons if I'm talking to them. I'll say like Bud. Usually is what I call them. And I feel the same way about the way you feel about Bud. I feel about the same way when people call me boss. I don't like that. Like, what's up,
Mm,
boss? What's up, big boss? I don't
okay.
like that. Don't like
Okay.
that.
There you go. That's good to know. That's good
Yeah.
to know because I'll throw that title out to people all the time. I'm all about the learning. That's
Yeah.
that's what we're here for.
It's funny though. I now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you definitely call me that, but that doesn't from you. I think it's people that I don't know.
Mm, that's
Because
fair. Yeah, yeah.
it feels disrespectful. I don't know why. It just does. But here we are. But hey, we're not a English language podcast. What we are is a question answering, bag building, rip daring podcast. Daring the questions and bags one disc at a time. So I think we get into some questions, Robbie. What about you?
Yeah, let's do it. We're starting with Austin today, who said, "My question is, if I have a decent backhand, it can somewhat reliably shape a turnover shot going to the right. How aggressively should I try to develop a forehand? Like if every time I go out and practice throwing a forehand, I just end up getting frustrated because it doesn't go very well. I've got a somewhat usable short approach or scramble forehand, and I rarely use it because it's so inconsistent. Thanks, you guys are the best."
First of all, Austin,
So,
you're the best.
so you've got a good turnover and you're wondering, hey, I just don't have I don't have a good forehand. I don't really feel like I want to develop the forehand. I get that.
Hmm.
My here's my initial read is that if you never practice the skill, it's never going to get better. So part of the reason why practicing a forehand would not only help you because yes, on the distance shots, yes, on the tee shots most often,
Hmm.
you have a version of the shot. However, there are times that a forehand is the correct play on for a right-handed player on a left or right shot versus
Hmm.
a backhand turnover. Conversely, I was kind of the opposite of you, Austin, in that I had a forehand well before I had a backhand turnover. So I was trying to work forehands on those lines.
Hmm.
So, but I think practicing the forehand while you still keep the backhand somewhat dialed. I had a student who just started working with me 2 weeks ago, I think, in book lessons. And he was like, let's work on everything. We're going to work on forehand, backhand, putting. And I was like, all right, here's my thought. Let's work on one of them
Hmm.
and let's work on putting so that there's still some aspect of your game that you can actually score with,
Yeah. Right.
because that way you're not going to get frustrated when you're working on something. So if you know that the forehand is going to frustrate you, keep the backhand dialed and just understand that putting in the time, while it doesn't seem like it's paying off on your longer shots. You mentioned that all you have is that short forehand upshot that still feels unreliable. Well, the more you practice the longer one, that shorter one is also going to dial in. And you could work it the
Hmm.
other way as well of every time I throw an upshot, I'm just going to throw a forehand upshot and get used to that and then just start pushing the distance. That would be
Right.
sort of my thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the forehand. I don't. And maybe this is wrong, but I feel like you have to have somewhat of a forehand to if you what. Let's go back. What is your goal? Like, are you trying to play tournaments? Are you trying to improve your rating? Are you trying to get better at a certain course? Are you just wanting to have more fun? I think those are like the baseline questions, right? But I think if you're trying to get better and be more competitive, you're gonna have to just like work through the frustration of your forehand. And I'm not saying you have to throw like 400-foot forehands off the tee, but I think you need to have probably up to like a 200-foot forehand, and mainly for the confidence and utility to like scramble or get yourself out of a bad situation, or maybe you're like I don't know, maybe you're like really, really in a bad position. Maybe you throw that bad first drive, and then you can't rely on that turnover because you're pinched off for a backhand, but then you have this big opening for a forehand to get you like back in position. I think you need to have at least somewhat of a developed forehand if you're trying to score and be competitive because of those situations. And like, hey, I was frustrated. Like, I was a baseball player my whole life, and I was really frustrated that I didn't have a good forehand for a long time because it felt like I should be able to, and I feel like everyone I saw with a baseball background could throw a really good forehand, or most people picked up forehand first. Um, so it was really frustrating for a while, and I think you just have to embrace what it's like. And if you're getting really frustrated, maybe you're also using the wrong discs. Don't be afraid to
That's
go
true.
with some flippy discs too, depending on your release and all that. Because I think that really, I just heard a bunch and like assumed I needed overstable discs to do my forehands, and that wasn't the case at all. I actually went with a more neutral disc because I could actually hit it hard and it would like flip up to flat but not turn over and push and then fade at the end for me. So I think if you're getting frustrated, don't give up on the forehand. Maybe just look at the other like variables. Like, okay, am I using the right discs? Am I choosing my forehand in the right circumstance? Or am
Mhm.
I only going? You're also maybe associating your forehand with trouble if you're only using it to scramble. You're like, oh, and then if you scramble, you're like really 50-50 on is it going to work? Is it not going to work? So you're automatically associating your forehand with 50-50 probability, right? Give
Yeah.
yourself some opportunities elsewhere too. That would be my
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Especially the switching discs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we just people get so locked in on this is what you throw for this shot. Like it, we have a question about a trail coming up, and I think that it definitely demonstrates the okay. It's not always so easy as a plug and disc golf's not a plug and play sport.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to adapt because all of us change and the disc change and the weights and all of that affected.
Yeah.
So, Gordy asked, Gordy Johnson, what has astonished me is when pros switch sponsors, how are they able to find a putting putter? For over a decade, I've putted with Wardens. Lately, though, I found that they tend to felt funky, either out of the hand or flight at about 20 feet plus and out. Should I work through it or try something new? And if I was to try something new, what is the best approach to finding an option? My disc golf friend said that a pure proxy will work well with my release angle. Thanks so much. So let's break this down into, I think, if you were trying to find a new putter, how would you go about it?
Mm-hmm.
And then that will help us answer the when pros switch sponsors, how do they find a putting putter?
Yeah.
So Brad, if I told you you're putting currently with Rico's,
Correct.
okay, so let's say Castoplast ceases to exist as a company,
Okay.
and not only do they cease to exist as a company, but suddenly, uh,
All Ricos evaporate.
yes, they're all gone. So you have to find a new putting putter
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow.
Right.
What are you doing? And you obviously have a little bit more of a favorable time for this because you have a legitimate warehouse of discs
Correct.
sitting in front of you.
Correct.
But let's say you didn't have that warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Let's tackle it from that perspective.
Yeah.
How would you go about it?
Well, first I put out a poll on In the Bag Instagram, and then you tell me what I'm going to putt with. No.
There it is.
Yeah. No, I think two ways. If I didn't work where I worked, I think this is kind of okay, I'll go back to what I did at first and how I landed on the Roach.
Yeah.
I did some research, right, and I ordered magnets of all things. Why? But I ordered magnets, and I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, they feel like more like a frisbee, and like they're easy to putt with at first." And I just heard some advice there. And then I ordered those, and I also talked to, like, it was Hunter at the time, but any of your friends or family or whomever local community that plays disc golf, like, get a few of their discs and just feel them. You don't have to throw them; just feel what feels good in your hand. Because I really think putting, I don't really feel like the putter matters a whole lot inside of 30 feet. I think we said that like an episode or two ago. My personal opinion. I think it just has to feel good out of your hand or feel good in your hand, and then the rest is just practice at some point. So I would feel a bunch of and decide what I think decide what you don't like more than like what you like, because it's going to narrow things down a little bit. Because I think there's like a couple main factors really for putters. Number one's plastic type.
Yep.
Do you like more grippy? Do you like more solid or more firm, more soft? I like more firm putters, and Robbie, I know you do too. Like I
Yeah.
like a more. I don't like a lot of give. I feel like that creates some more variable that I don't want in my grip. I think number two is like depth of putter. Do you like a shallow putter or a more deep
Mhm.
putter or somewhere in the middle? And then I think bead or no bead, and in between that's like a micro bead, right? I think those three are like the big like main factors, and you have to kind of decide what you don't like. Like me, I don't like a bead, so that eliminates a lot of putters off
Mhm.
the bat for me. I like a base plastic, which most putters you can find in base plastic, and I like something more firm. So that actually kind of narrows down my field a lot. So it doesn't seem like this endless, like I'm walking in the wilderness trying to go through all these putters. I really now have like kind of um, a narrow scope of what I'm actually looking for. Um, I just thought of a really cool thing to add to our website, so I'm jotting it down really quick. Um, to
For
make
putter
to
shopping.
yeah on putter shopping. So anyway,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think those factors. So I think that is probably the best bet. And then it's got to feel good in your hand. And if you have a local store, that's a great time to go before you go to the store, because if you go to your local disc golf store, you're gonna have 1,000 discs. You're gonna get distracted, and you're gonna convince yourself you like something that you actually don't like because it looks cool. Go in with a plan. Say, okay, well, I like these three putters. I like the Rico, the Roach, and the P2. I know those are different putters, but you get what I'm saying. And then go in and feel them, because and like just kind of get a vibe of that, and like don't be afraid to look at other stuff, obviously, but find those, feel them, and then I think you just have to like take the plunge sometimes, and then
Yeah.
commit to like a month of it. Don't commit to like a week of it.
Yeah.
Really embrace it, because I mean, honestly, with the Ricos, when I started with them, I really disliked them. I'm like, how am I going to putt all year with these things? I hate them. And realistically, I'm now starting. I don't play a ton these days, but now the more I putt with them, I'm kind of figuring out like how I have to putt. And it's actually like unlocking this really like smooth form that I haven't had in a long time with putting since I
Mm.
putted with the Roaches. So, but it's taken a long time to realize that. So it depends on how much you play. So
Yeah.
I think, and then, I mean, most shops have used bins. You don't have to go new, go use, like find them. Just understand they may fly a little bit differently. But if, again, inside of 30 feet, I don't feel like it matters a ton. So just have to be aware of the plastic. Um, so yeah, that's what I would probably do, Robbie.
Yeah. I think the things I would highlight out of that are the three big features of plastic type, depth, and bead versus no bead,
Mm-hmm.
because Brad nailed it. Like where you decide to land on those three things will close your putter pool dramatically. I think about if you want a deep putter that doesn't have a bead, an inner core fits that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a beadless, deep putter that feels great. However, if you like a very, very firm putter, the plastics that are currently available in the inner core are not that. Like they are softer to like a neutral is softer plastic.
Right.
So, especially in their base plastic, honestly, their base plastic is one of their firmer plastics, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty great.
Yeah.
So, if you love a softer plastic, the inner core could be it for you right off the bat. But if you're like, I don't like a deep putter, then that eliminates that option for you. So now you're looking at something like a Fierce or
Uh-huh.
so. I think that that's definitely something to help. And for pros, I think why pros can do it so fast is because they know exactly what they're looking for on those. So when they roll up, they're not looking. You think about right now, you, Gordy, have the world in front of you for putting putter options. They're showing up and they have a manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
So that pool drops dramatically. And then what Brad's saying of like going out and feeling them and trying them, any of these big pros, when they're signing a contract, are most likely ending up at the warehouse, and there's baskets all over these warehouses. So they're just grabbing a stack of like the used testers,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just putting with them a couple hundred times, and they get down to two, and
Mm-hmm.
then they decide between those two. And so I love that idea of going to a local store. If you don't have a local store, I would try to just play with as many random people as you can on your local course. Be super kind during the round, because if you're weird, I don't think that when you play with random people and you say, "Hey, can I feel your putter?"
Hmm.
That's probably not going to go that well. So
Right.
I would try to be as kind and normal as possible, and then yeah, just get a hold of them. And I would take what Brad said of trying for a month. I'm on the extreme side of that. I think 2 months, especially if you're
Hmm.
not playing on a weekly basis, if not multiple times a week, you're probably not getting that much time and reps on them.
Hmm.
And you could just literally be in a bad putting season for a month. If you're playing, we'll say once a week, you're playing every weekend, it's not unrealistic to have 4 bad putting rounds in a row,
No.
especially if you're not practicing it and working on it. So if you go and like you try to putt with these for a month, it may not work, but 2 months, you'll find some average in there and get
Hmm.
to feel it out and try putting them from multiple distances. So, and all that to say, to come back to the real thing, I don't think you have to switch away from your wardens. If you like your wardens, lean into them, keep using them. But there is a fun. I think that you look at just the foundation staff, there is a joy to switching putters every year.
Hmm.
But I think you also go on the other side of the extreme of that is that, especially with Clayton gone, I would consider myself amongst foundation staff members one of the better putters we have. And I am not constantly switching putters
Hmm.
either. So it goes
Clayton is
it
still
goes
here,
both
by the
ways.
way. Clayton is still here.
Sorry. It works less, but yes, even with Clayton being there, I would still put
But
myself in top three.
I would put yourself in top two. However, what I would say is you're right, and even Clayton's this way too. He's putted with the darts forever. Like that's what he puts with. So
Yeah, once you
there's
find what
something to be
works for
said.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Hunter still prefers the PA3. He's switching every month, just as like an experiment for the year again. But he prefers the PA3. When you see
yeah,
him putt on the putting league, he's putting with PA3s.
yeah. So we've got next is Elvin. How do you mentally overcome a bad shot? Speaking for tournament play more than a casual round. So this is one that I think we'll end up covering a few times as we go throughout the podcast because we all have bad shots and it just happens. So
Mm-hmm.
I how do you overcome a bad shot? I think the short answer is going full
Don't
Ted
have bad
Lasso, memory
shots.
of a gold yeah, that is that if you just don't throw bad shots, you don't have to overcome any bad shots.
Next
So that is
question.
fair. But yeah, I think it's just remembering like one shot. I actually think Brad has the most profound answer to this, is that one shot is not going to like derail your round, and you don't have to spend the rest of your round trying to overcome, like trying to claw back from that one bad shot. Now you could have a terrible shot that results in like 3 to 4 strokes. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is very, very possible. I watched someone once play a par 4 with me, and he threw it through some trees off of a cliff, like a legitimate. It took probably 10 minutes for him to get to the bottom of that cliff. It was not OB down there.
Wow.
So he had to throw all the way back up the cliff. How do you mentally recover from that? I'm going to be 100% honest. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't throw a disc off a cliff and have to play up it and expect to score well the rest of the round.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, it's because you start turning it into, how do I execute this shot sitting right in front of me? And you start picking easier shots to throw. That would be my cheat code is,
Mm-hmm.
if you're throwing a bad shot, it's because you misexecuted. So do everything you can to start executing. So I tell people all the time, the beauty of a pitch up or like a pitch out
Mm-hmm.
is to pick a spot, throw your pitch out to that spot, and don't think about it as I'm giving up a stroke. Think about it as I'm executing this pitch out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be in the middle of the fairway. Boom, I'm in the middle of the fairway. If I just executed that shot, who says that I can't execute the next one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just important not to. You should, if you're playing a tournament, you should have like some sort of a plan, right? And I'll say it. I think if your plan is I'm shooting 8 under, that is a terrible plan. The plan should be this is the way that I'm going to shoot 8 under. That's a plan. If you say I'm going to shoot 8 under, that's just a statement. It's not a plan. And I say that to say So you don't, if you throw a bad shot, like a really bad shot, and you pick up a stroke that you weren't expecting, so maybe you're going to birdie that hole, was your plan, and you actually bogey that hole. So that's 2 strokes, right? But you're not in debt now. Just keep going to your plan. And if you happen to throw a great shot, look at a way of, you know, this is an opportunity. Like you're going to find opportunities to maybe make up those shots. But what you don't need to do is on the next tee be like, okay, well, I'm just going to try to park this one when I know I can't and choose a wrong disc and a bad shot. And then now you're losing another stroke. That's where it matters. Is it's like a tourniquet kind of mentality. Like, okay, that's done. Close the door on it. I'm on to the next hole. Each hole's another door to go through, and you got to close the one behind you. If you leave it open, you're going to get all that draft from all the other shots that you threw, and that's just not a good thing.
Don't leave the door open.
Don't leave the door open. Close the door. Go to the next room.
I love it. Eddie asks, what can I do with my technique to better control throwing power? I play mostly woods golf, and I'm tending to overthrow discs, whether it's a standstill, one step, or full X step. When I want to slow my throw down, I usually early release. I can park a 400-foot open hole, but that hurts more than it helps when I hit first available. So you throw far, you tend to overthrow, and when you slow it down, you early release. Park a 400-foot open hole, but that hurts more than I help.
Can I copy an answer from a very similar question? We had a couple episodes on this one.
Sure.
And I think technique is not necessarily the problem here. I think that judging distance is a problem, and how it relates to power is a problem. So I think you need to go to a soccer field or go to a baseball field or go to an open field, and you need to put objects, cones, your bag, whatever, one out at 200, one out at 250, one out at 300, and try to throw those distances. I think it's a more of a like your body needs to understand what that looks like versus like, because if you can throw 400 feet, you have. What I found out,
good form.
This is a sidebar. What I found out this week, I spent like 30 minutes on tech disc throwing into a screen with Connor, Trevor, and Hunter yesterday because of the question of, hey, how do I fix my nose angle? It led to this whole thing. And what it really boils down to is I can have a 1.2 degree nose angle, but if my technique's not good, I'm not throwing as far as I want to throw at some point. And Robbie, you may disagree with that in some ways, but that's my blanket statement, right? So if you can park a 400-foot hole out in the wide open, your technique's good enough. You just need to practice on gauging distance, and I think some of that's also picking the right disc as well. And I think that's really more of the practice you need to do. I don't think there's like, hey, how do I change my technique? You're early releasing if you're slowing your throw down because you're mid throw second guessing how hard you're trying to throw. It has nothing to do with like your technique. I'll probably, that's maybe a little hot take, but I think it's more of like, oh, you're pulling through, you're like, oh wait, I'm not throwing full power now, I need to slow down. It's more about like just gauging your distance, because I think that's, and I talked about this an episode or two ago, but that's such a skill that you have to develop in like other sports and other things, like, and your body has to just kind of intuitively know at some point because you've done the repetition. Like I can throw like a baseball from here to that cart, from here to that doorway, from here to that corner of the room pretty accurately because I've thrown a baseball like tens of hundreds of thousands of times, and I know what kind of power I need to do that. So I think that, and I've judged distance a ton because I've shot archery my entire life. So those are the few skills I'm good at in disc golf. I can't throw 400 feet, but I can be pretty accurate as far out to like 200 feet. I can probably land stuff in a pretty decent circle there just because I understand what that distance is.
Yeah. I would say I would focus on your release point. That seems to be the issue, is if you don't have accuracy, you're probably spraying, which is that's the question, is how do I don't think it's better control your technique for throwing power, because when you're throwing short, if you're hitting first available, and that's the worry, it's an accuracy thing. And one of the biggest things when you find your release point in a disc is actually how insanely consistent it makes you in throwing your shots. Because if you can consistently hit 400 feet, then you're hitting some form of a release point over and over again. If you're hitting 400 feet, but then you're also sometimes throwing 300 feet, a video that came out recently that I think demonstrated this at a very high level? Brody Smith dropped his video. How far do I throw? I think it actually, as we're recording this, I think it dropped last night, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yep.
And so Wednesday for listeners. And in that video, Brody, surprise. I don't know about you, Brad. I was shocked that he still had all of that distance. Put multiple shots over 500 feet coming back. And having just played with Brody in March or April, no shot, dude. But dude trimmed up, got back to it, is working on it. And I was like, yeah, that's amazing. I'm so stoked for him. That's incredible. But he said, when I hit my release point, I knew like that was a crush. And then when he missed his release point, it was inaccurate and it was short. So I think that's the focus point here, Eddie, is trying to dial in that release point, because then when you're throwing slower, you can still try to focus on hitting that release point, which is why things are slipping out early, is because when you're throwing when you're just thinking about smashing a disc and getting it out there, your body's going to naturally find that release point. But when you slow it down, suddenly it doesn't just automatically rip out at that certain spot. And that's where your accuracy starts to dwindle a little bit. So Brian from Raleigh, I've been playing only 4 months, and max consistent distance is about 260. I bag a mango, a zone, and a gator. The mango I use primarily in the wind for very overstable shots. The gator flies less overstable than the numbers, and the gator is his favorite disc in his bag. The zone he just uses for approach shots less than 150 feet. Should he also bag a throwing putter like an Envy, or is that overkill on overstable throwing putters and mids? Thanks. Love the podcast. So he's throwing 260, and he wants to know, basically, he has 3 what are definitely overstable discs. Even if the gator doesn't fly true to numbers, because I think the gator tries to be like a 5304 or something like that. Yeah. 5303. And I would agree, there are certain runs of gators that are super overstable. Most gators, So, Brad, I'm going to let you kind of tackle this one on its entirety, and I may throw something in at the end, but this feels right up your alley, because I know you've bagged the mango before, and or thrown the mango at least, and then the zone you love and the Envy you love.
Yeah, and I've thrown the gator many a time. I think that the overstable throwing putter versus like the 4-speed overstable approach disc, those are 2 whole different slots in my bag. So I think, yes, you should definitely bag something like an Envy, because there's just something different about like an Envy, for example, throwing off the tee. It's overstable and it can handle the torque of like a drive, so you can throw the power on it, but it's going to have the glide and carry that like a zone or a gator or nothing like that's ever going to have, just in my opinion. And it still will give you that overstability that you're looking for, that like if you're right-handed, that right to left motion. And I'm not really ever choosing my Envy to do like a overstable like forehand approach. I mean, I might, if I need to like really back off on some power, there's like a rare scenario, but again, that zone like kind of thing is just a whole different slot in my bag. Now, an Envy versus a mango, or I kind of put gator in like the zone category, if I'm being honest. Like I put gator in that approach disc category. But coming back to the mango, now your mango, and what you're probably feeling is like your max distance is like 260, which is fine, but like you're not going to see much difference in the mango and Envy distance wise. You might even throw your Envy further or farther than your mango, because I feel like that's going to match your arm a little bit more. So that's probably why you're having like this struggle between hey, what do I bag in all of this? I think pick an approach disc that you like on forehand and backhand. Pick that one. I'm gonna recommend the zone, but whatever you feel is what you feel. And then I would say definitely bag a throwing putter, like an Envy, something a little overstable that can handle the torque. And actually, that's probably going to be like a comfort to you, especially if you're throwing like 260. You're probably going to get max distance out of it and be able to control it a lot more.
Mm,
And then like the Mango, I think just keep in your bag for like an overstable like mid range, because there are times you want like more of a mid range shot versus a putter shot. But I think you could probably tear it up with just an approach disc and an overstable throwing putter versus like
yeah.
having the bag confusion, because you're not going to see a ton of difference between any of the other ones.
Well, the question I would kind of pose to you, Brad, as our resident envy expert, is so if he felt like he had overlap on, let's say that, because we don't know what kind of zone he has,
Hmm.
but let's say that he found like a seasoned zone in the use bin and it's just a little straighter, things like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like a really overstable run of zones, either side of the coin.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe because he's throwing 260, should he start with maybe an electron slash
For
base
sure. For sure.
envy?
Yeah. Don't go grab an Eclipse Envy. It's going to be too overstable. It's not going to be what you want it to be. But yeah, definitely Electron. And what's cool, they have Electron Firm, Electron Soft, regular Electron. So
Mm-hmm.
you have some variety there, which is really cool. Yeah, definitely grab Electron because it's going to give you a little bit more. Yeah, it is. And they even changed the flight number, so -1, 2, I believe, on the Electron Envies, because
Mm-hmm.
they do fly a little straighter than any of the, like, Proton or um, Eclipse. So yeah, definitely go Electron.
Yeah. And to electron being base, I decided in future videos, because someone in the comments of every time I throw gyro tries to ring me up on, I will say within the video without fail, I will say electron while talking about glow
Yeah,
plastic, and eclipse is their glow plastic.
correct.
So I'm just not going to call it eclipse anymore. I'm just going to call it glow
Yeah,
and
there you go.
just avoid that entirely. So yeah, I hope that helps, Brian. I think Brad spot on. Nothing really to add. So if we go to our next question from Garrett, been practicing 100 foot, less around 100 foot straight approach shots with the polecat, but in a recent tournament, it never left the back. I just threw stock Hyzer pig approaches. I mean, Garrett, sounds like you're 1,000 rated. Based off disc selection alone, pig up shots, polecat up shots, I've never been more proud of my life. I'm struggling with comfort and consistent release of the polecat due to the large rim. Touche. I have tried the inner core and have had better success, but then I could just use my throwing putter. What are some other discs that y'all recommend that don't have a peanut butter jar rim, or am I just overthinking things? Um, Thanks as always, guys. I also have tried the glitch, but it was too light and would glide into the next county. That I can agree with. So in terms of the lids, there are a lot of different options here. I've messed around with so many at this point. So I'm gonna rapid fire some thoughts here.
Okay.
And Brad, I know y'all throw a spore as a like throw and catch one,
Yep.
because that neoplastic that the spores got dropped in
Hmm.
is like super soft.
Yeah, it's great.
Spore feels very good. I think the spore reminds me of those fastbacks that you get at a convention center,
Hmm.
where they're like, hey, here is a frisbee that has my brand on it,
Yeah.
but it actually has durability to it. Those frisbees are always like super cheap.
Yeah.
So I think that the spore, one of the more natural feeling lids that
Hmm.
feels like a shrunken down ultra star,
Yeah.
or which is like a ultimate lid.
Hmm.
Speaking of shrunken down ultra stars, I think that the Rattler is also a great option for this.
I knew you were gonna say
Very,
that.
very similar hand feel.
Hmm.
Now, the Rattler, the only thing about it is that the premium run was a Ledgestone drop last year or the year before. And so could be a little harder to find, you would think, but no one likes the Rattler. I don't know why. I think it's fantastic. So you
Mhm.
can find those in a lot of different places because that Ledgestone drop, for some reason, that one did not shine during the Ledgestone drop. So the Rattler, great choice. The range from Gyro, staying in the glitch world, the range is phenomenal. Also works really well on this. Has a good amount of glide, carries forward, comfortable hand feel, a little more shallow, so you don't have the depth of the polecat rim. Let's keep walking down the line. The
Yeah.
Berg also does this
Mhm.
extremely well. If you
Yeah.
want that consistency, that heavy weight, I would be remiss to not talk about the Berg in this conversation.
Yeah.
You also have the Hydrogen is pretty good by Luft, and it is Loft, but I believe it's pronounced Luft. The Hydrogen throws really well. I would suggest it is pretty decent. And another one that is a company out of Georgia, they make 3D printed discs, the Tunnel Shot, also very, very good for this. A lot more flat topped. I think the Tunnel Shot is the flattest of any of the options I just gave. So
Mhm.
if you want something that feels flat in hand, a little shallow, Tunnel Shot works really, really well. 3D printed, but they feel very, very good. The best 3D printed discs I've ever felt, compound discs.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
I
I think
think
this is.
that's
I
it.
think. I think it'd be hard, like, because I think exactly what Garrett is looking for is a burger range. I think you want like you want to be able to, because you're throwing like stock Hyzer like pig approaches, so you want to throw something a little harder versus like the touch of a little floaty like 100-foot straight shot. So I
Yeah,
think burger range is the answer because it'll allow you to hit it with a little more power, but it's not going to go as far as like a lid, in my opinion.
yeah. The other option would be to grab a very understable throwing putter, like a Fierce
Mm-hmm.
or a Spin. That would also work because
Like
then you could
nose
just
up.
kind of throw it nose up, float it right at the basket. And if you didn't want to use it on that shot, you could use it for like a big turnover shot
Mm-hmm.
with a putter shot. So definitely some options there, but I get it. I threw in the video that is dropping today on my channel. I threw a polecat again for the first time in a while, and I was like, this disc is money. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Flippier than I remembered it being
Mm-hmm.
because I've been throwing my range so much.
Yeah, right.
All right. Jack asked, I bag a trail, which given people's reviews, I wanted it to be my max distance disc. The disc I throw with 95% power, get it further than everything else. Yet when I throw at full power, even with a bit of hyzer and a tailwind, it just turns over. Should I be thinking about this disc differently? Maybe more of an accurate disc I throw at 85%, or do I just throw it on more hyzer and still throw it at 95? I know y'all throw further than I do, so I'm curious how you throw the trail given that you love it so much.
Well, I don't. I
So
don't throw further than you, Jack.
the when you're thinking about the trail, the way that I would describe the trail, and Brad, you can tell me if you disagree, is that when the trail gets moving right, it really doesn't ever want to come all the way back. It
Right.
may get back to its initial line, but it's certainly not going to fade
Right.
if it gets turning.
Correct. I would agree with
So
that.
when you're throwing the trail, I think you just have to decide how much do I want to yam into this thing
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going to get free distance out of it when it starts turning. I
Right.
just have to know accuracy wise where that's coming. So if every time you're giving this the beans and you're ripping it, it's turning over, then I think you need to slow it down. Yeah, like don't throw it so hard.
You don't need to.
But I also am a natural hyzer guy, so I throw my trails on a lot of hyzer, and so they stand up to flat for me. But
Mm-hmm.
I also there's the special editions that dropped on like the initial run are legitimately just more overstable.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my
Mm-hmm.
hack is finding either an early run or putting in a little more hyzer because that's what I use it for. I use it for my max distance disc right now when
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to full send something. If I want to full send
Right.
something, I actually still step up to a raider.
Yeah. I was gonna say like yeah, either three options. Number one, back off on your power, smooth one out, and get the same amount of distance or more with like less effort. Number two, put on a lot more hyzer, or number three, throw a grace.
That's Grace is a great choice.
Yeah, because I think the
Could be
Grace has
could be flippy. Yeah.
sneaky distance, but it will, if you're like throwing really hard, and I mean, it probably will fly what you want the trail to fly, what like, because I'm guessing that maybe if you're like me in the pretty flat to maybe slightly Anheuser release gang, then that's probably what's happening too. You're giving it the input of turning out of your hand, so it's just not going to come back.
Mm. Mm. Okay, so this next question, Brad, I actually don't know where you stand on this because I know you've played several sanction rounds, but I just don't know where you sit on this. So Robert Eichler asks, I never look at scores. Is there a point that I should? Yeah, traditionally, if you don't look at scores at the end of the round, you'll actually never know how you did.
Yeah.
So at some point, you probably should look at scores, Robert, because maybe you've actually been filthy at this game the entire time. But since you've never looked, you don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's the context, right? Because if you're talking about like in a tournament,
Yeah,
um,
I think that's what he's looking for.
because in general, like I'm the worst person to ask because I have to keep score at everything. I'm really competitive, not really like against other people, but against myself. So I have to know. Like even the UDisc like round rankings drive me nuts because I just don't like not winning or not succeeding. So probably a terrible person to ask about that. Now in a tournament, I'm a little opposite. I usually just focus on the people on my scorecard, just kind of know where I am in relation to them. I don't get into really looking at the whole field. Maybe if there's a 2 round event, then I'm going to look at the end of my first round to kind of know like where I stack up against everybody. And if I'm like one stroke off the lead or something like that, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to play a little more conservative and just try to hang on to that. And then I might look a little closer the second round, like every couple holes to see where everybody is. Or if I'm like, sometimes if I have a tough hole or something, I'll look and see how everybody else played on that hole just to see what the field is like on that hole. Like, am I having an off day or is this hole just hard for people my division? But yeah, I think the second round, I'm definitely looking at scores a little bit more, especially if I'm more competitive. Now, after the first round, if I had a trash round and I'm like in last place, I don't even care. I'm just playing disc golf with some guys now at that point, and it's just no sense of getting frustrated. I think that, but if you find yourself like score chasing and you're looking every like hole, that's a bad thing. No matter like where
Mm.
you are, even if you're in the lead. I think especially if you're in the lead, you don't need to worry about the people biting at your ankles. You need to just play your game because it's obviously working. So I think there's a lot. That's a very, very loaded question. I think it really depends. But yeah, to your point, Rob, if you want to be competitive, or you should just know where you are if you're playing a tournament at least. And maybe that's a good place to start. Like after the first round, kind of look at where you are, and then if going into the second round, maybe pay attention if you're like being competitive.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it
People that
goes
don't
both
keep score,
ways.
people that play disc golf even for fun. Sorry, this is like I don't understand how you do anything for fun and not keep score. It's not fun for me if you don't keep score.
Yeah.
Is that might be bratty? I don't know, but like I
No,
can
it's
I have to.
very real.
I don't care if we're playing a board game or we're playing like let's go play disc golf for fun. Well, it's not fun if I don't know how I'm playing. Like
Yeah.
who just goes and throws and doesn't keep score? I don't understand that. That baffles me. Sorry. Next question.
There are a lot of people, let me tell you, Brad. There's actually an entire function on UDisc so that you can track your round, but you don't track your scores.
Yeah, I useless, completely
Yeah.
useless.
No. Very useful. Very useful. I'll go ahead and defend Josh, the creator of Overthrow here, because or not Overthrow, of UDisc, also creator of Overthrow, but different Josh. In that it's the help track stats of course usage. So if more people would track activity rounds because they wanted to not keep score of that round,
Yeah.
then it would help give you just more accurate numbers, which helps them give information to local clubs so that they go to city councils and get more courses and
Well,
things like
that's
that.
great. You have your app open anyway. Just keep score.
So I the way I would approach this, Robert, is that I think it is a skill to learn how to deal with the pressure of how to keep score and no score. So If when you find yourself consistently looking at scores, it messes you up and you start floundering a little bit, then I ironically think that you need to look at scores a little more often because of the fact that something is happening where your body is like telling itself, once I know where I'm at, I'm going to struggle. Now, conversely, I know like someone who, when they play, they've mentioned that they're going to fall apart in the last 6 holes. Like they're just going to fall apart in the last 6 holes. And part of that is a mental wall where when they get to the last 6 holes, they expect themselves to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other is it usually someone's announcing the scores when they get to those last 6 holes. So are they falling apart because they're hearing the scores? Are they falling apart because fatigue? Are they falling apart because of mental wall? I don't know. But I think, yeah, looking at those scores can help over time. And it really does help you sort of get that mental reset. I talked about playing at or like walking with cards at the Music City Open, and I appreciated that Gavin Babcock, yeah, Gavin Babcock checked the scores on like hole 8 of a round, and he and Sully were walking, and Sully knows that Gavin doesn't always check his scores. But Gavin, like he saw Gavin checking, and so he walked over as a friend and was like, "Oh, you're looking at scores?" And he said, "Yeah, I just got to look to get something going."
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that. Like looking and saying, "Hey, I feel like I'm playing okay," or maybe I feel like I'm playing bad. And then you check scores and you look at the leaderboard and you realize, "Oh, I'm actually playing. The conditions are just tougher than I'm giving them credit for today.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is playing at this level. I'm actually playing pretty well compared to the field." That's good because then you know that you still don't feel like you're performing to your level, so you can still kind of turn it on, but you don't have to be silly aggressive because you know where you're at.
Right.
Important.
Mm-hmm.
So, finding it gives you more information to play with, but if your game is not dialed in, slash, you cannot feel like you can deal with the pressure, looking at scores is most often going to be a detriment to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would just focus on improving and feeling consistent, and then later on, working on adding in that extra information. So, mystery question asker asks, I've been using 4 different putts: a stagger to push, a straddle push, and a staggered spin. It's partially because on certain days they work better than one day. It's partially because on certain days work better on the day. Should I try to keep one, or should I try to lock in on one, or keep going off a feel of the day? So, Brad, are you a person that feels like you've got like multiple putts that you lean on and use, or do you just kind of do the same push or the same putt?
I think like if I'm like truly putting like a open normal putt, I'm trying to do the same thing every time because I don't think there's a way to develop consistency and accuracy if I don't. But I will say like I do have a confident like straddle if I'm like putting uphill or I need to like step out.
Mm,
Like I feel confident still with that putt. So I basically have like a putt and a B putt. But I'm not like if like the my like normal whatever you call it staggered spush putt isn't on, I just like try to power through that. I'm not going to switch to my straddle putt and start putting straddle that day.
mm.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. When I think about, so he says he has a staggered push, a straddle spush, and a staggered spin. So I'll go ahead and tell you that the staggered spin feels like the anomaly there.
Yeah.
The straddle spush, I'm not necessarily sure what the difference is going to be between a straddle push and a straddle spush. Probably less of like a granny, like a grandpa style dad putt
Mm-hmm.
versus like more of a direct line at it.
Yeah.
So I agree with what Brad said in that, like, I have an A putt and a B putt. For me, my mechanics don't really change on my stagger versus my straddle, but I'm pushing both of them
Mm-hmm.
and even spushing to some degree. But I'm doing that. So for when I walk up, because if I have like a 25-foot open look, I will not always just default into my stagger.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could tell you that there's like a distance reasoning. The only time that comes into play is when I find myself 45 feet and beyond. If I'm outside of 45, I will go to a straddle,
Okay,
which
same. Yeah.
shocks some people, but it's because I can get lower with the putt and I can swing it back between my legs to get more pop on the putt afterwards. So that is 100% the reason that I do that. However, if I'm like at 20, like I said, 20, 25 feet, there are times that I'll walk up and I'll throw a, a straddle putt in the middle of an open field. To me, I practice both of them. Every time that I practice, I pretty much split like 60-40 straddles and staggers
Mm-hmm.
so that both of them feel dialed in. And I just kind of let my body take over when I get to the putt. And I say, like, if I walk up and my body just somehow naturally defaults into a stagger, great. That's what it feels most confident in.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do it. And if I have hesitancy, that's the first thing I'll switch. Is I will be like, oh, okay, well, let me just try this and see if this feels a little more confident. Awesome. So I think 4 different putts is a lot. Do I have other putts available? Like, do I have a spin putt that I can use? Yes, but I'm not like, my spin putt is in there in case of emergency. Not a, I, at no point on a open look am I looking and saying, hey, I should throw a spin putt here.
Yeah.
So I definitely think mystery question person, I would dial in a couple.
Yeah. You're not going to ever be really good at 4. You might be pretty decent at 2, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so last question of the episode, and then so we have Matt. I'm wondering the trade off between weight and stability, as when should you grab more or less stable mold versus going up and down in weight? For example, he has 150-gram Insanity that flies about the same as a 168-gram Virus. I like the idea of mold minimalization, but I'm trying to figure out where that threshold lies. Thanks.
Hmm. I don't know how I feel about this, if I'm being honest. So I'll probably lean on you a little bit, Robbie. The only thing that I will say, just like not really, it's probably pretty hard to find a 150-gram Insanity, but it's probably pretty easy to find a 168-gram Virus.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing. I'm sure, again, we're gonna have some of you physics folks come on, but I mean, in my mind, it seems to make sense that if you have a slower arm speed or you're like a more gentle thrower, it's easier to get like a 150-gram circle up like at faster rotations than a 168-gram circle. But I don't know the actual physics to that, and I'm sure there's like drag and like nose and like all this other stuff that come into play. So if y'all want a physics episode, let us know. We'll find a guy or gal to do that. But mine's just sheerly off what feels good and what's probably available, because I feel like that 150-gram Insanity is like a very hard find.
Yeah. The availability is definitely something. I mean, I just think about the fact that Madison Walker joined MVP like 2 or 3 years ago, and they had to ask their community for help because they didn't have enough lightweight discs in stock for her. They have since remedied that, but a reality nonetheless. The manufacturer did not have what they were looking for. So I think leaning on super, super lightweight stuff is good, but less reliable in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing to look at, is that if every disc that you throw is 150 grams because you decided that the way you're going to move is you're going to go down in weight,
Mm-hmm.
the wind is going to affect them significantly more.
Mm-hmm.
So now that being said, you can go to a lighter weight overstable disc and sort of remedy that. So trade off between weight and stability, I think Brad nailed it. For most people, the difficulty they have with lightweight discs is that they think that they can throw it harder because it's lightweight. So they put more on it. But like the whole reason that you want to throw a lightweight disc is because it's easier to reach those thresholds to get the disc to fly. So you shouldn't have to feel like you're throwing a lightweight disc full power.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole reason you're doing it.
Right.
So to me, it would come down to, how do you like to throw? Yeah. If you
Also,
like to jam on something,
do you
go
have like,
heavier.
sorry, and there's a guy here, Mike. He's actually Hunter's uncle who had a shoulder surgery, so he's moved down in weight for this exact reason. He wants to still play. He wants to not make sure keeps his shoulder from getting injured, and he's throwing easier, right, to not re-injure this shoulder. So he's gone down like significantly in weight to do so, but he's not throwing as hard, but he still wants the same kind of flights, right? So that's kind of what he's doing here. To your point, Rob, I just wanted to highlight that. And also, like, common misconception: if you throw a 148-gram destroyer, then it's going to be like a wraith. It's not. It's still going to be a destroyer. Just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that certain molds, weight will affect them. That's probably the real answer here, Matt, is that certain molds, weight will affect the flight of it, just because lowering the weight lowers the threshold required to get the disc to fly true to numbers, because it just takes less input into it. So, but there comes a point where, rather than trying to find this silly lightweight destroyer because you think that's the disc you're looking for, it's probably better to find a disc that wants like that you can throw at a higher weight, that flies in that desire, that you can consistently get the power into. And the biggest thing, and I'll end on this, is planning to get better. If you're leaning into these 150-gram discs, hopefully you're going to improve. Hopefully you're going to see that arm speed improve. And then now you're in trouble, because now all your 150-gram stuff is lightweight. It's turning over. It's not as useful. My friend Ben is getting a lot better, and his main distance driver for a long time was a Jade. Okay, cool. Well, now he's at a point where some of his Jades are starting to turn over a little bit. That's great. That's awesome. Now he has to find something a little heavier. Whereas if you lean into the heavier stuff a little faster,
right,
then you won't be in that, like, I have to completely rework the bag type deals. You'll still have to change some stuff, but I just think that and who knows, maybe I'm just spitting out insanity here, because that 150-gram insanity, if you start throwing it really well and it turns over, you could just get a faster, or like a heavier insanity.
Right. Yeah, I will say I think that weight factor comes in a lot more with more, the more understable you go, the more the weight matters. I feel like.
Yeah, that's fair. There's a new dynamic mold that's coming out in a couple months that I was texting Jason about, and because I just got the prototype in, and I'm like, ooh, this thing looks so good. They're all going to be like 150 class. That worries me, because it's already a flippy disc. So,
yeah, we'll see how that works out.
Interesting. But so yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this week's questions. Next week, as your preview, we'll be diving in with Daniel, who asks about a increase in distance recently, an anonymous question asker, asking about putting with pigs, and then our boy Ephraim, type of discs or molds that you would lean on if you want to start focus on getting competitive. So that's your sneak preview. Oh, I guess. And then also, Chris asked a great question about music tastes and building a bag.
Can't wait for that one. Can't wait for that one.
That one, happy that we have a week to sort of pontificate about that.
Because I'm going to that one cold. I'm just going off the cuff.
Oh, I love it. I'm not going to do that, but I'm proud of you for doing that, Brad. So, if we have a link in the description for you guys to submit your questions. So make sure you head there. And I am looking forward to it. We still continue to have some great options. And yeah. So Brad, speaking of great options, what's new in the warehouse?
All right, biggest thing to highlight here is it finally released. We teased it last week. Actually, I have one right here on my desk. We have Crazy Caddy Foundation Edition. Boom.
Yeah.
Released this week along with a video the guys did, so make sure you check that out. But very excited to release those. It's been many months in the making. Finally have them in hand and ready to go, so very excited about that. Also, Connor Shaman, Trevor Cash, and Hunter Bird are all releasing again this week, so restock on those. A lot of people have been asking about them. We listened for real this time, and here they go. We will have some availability for the subscription box this month. This box will be teased. It's a little swashbuckling, I will say. So make sure you check it out. There's a 2-disc option and a 3-disc option with swag now. So if you always wanted to jump in and you're like, I can't quite budget that 3-disc with a swag item, we got a 2-disc option for you. So we listened and we're trying to make it available for everybody. So check that out. Also want to highlight, thank you for the few of you that booked some lessons through the In the Bag code last week, but make sure you always check out. Robbie's got lessons available, so any of these questions you submit, you're like, hey, you can walk through any of these questions most likely with Robbie on a private lesson, so you can check that on the site. Use code In the Bag, gets you $5 off for those. Pretty sweet savings, so check that out. If you haven't joined our text deal program, make sure you do that. I have it right here. I'll show Robbie off. Well, he's already seen it. The disc that Jason put in the chat yesterday is going to be text deal for next week, Robbie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a little callback, a little return, if you will. So our text deal, we obviously send out pretty cool deals. This week it was used premium discs for just $10. That was really fun, and Jason handpicked a bunch of cool, and Evan I think too, handpicked a bunch of really great discs out of the used section for that. A lot of them weren't even thrown, or thrown like once or twice. But sometimes we do like a custom drop first to our Textile folks. So if you're our Hyzer Club member, you get that notification first, then the Textile people, and then Friday they release. So we're going to be copying that model next week as well. So make sure you check that out. Check out Robbie's lessons. Use code In the Bag for $5 off. Check out Recently Restocked. As always, it's your best friend. And yeah, if you're trying out new discs, you're trying out new tips, we want to make sure they're good for you. And if they're good, what do we do, Robbie?
Keep them in the bag. We'll see you guys next week.
See y'all next week.